if they're Googling death and dying, if death and dying appears as a theme in their artwork, their music, their writing, if they're getting their affairs in order, if they're giving away prized possessions because they want to make sure those possessions go to the people they want them to go to when they're gone, and if they give away a pet, that's the top of the pyramid in terms of prized possessions. Here's the last one is counterintuitive and extremely dangerous. They've been depressed forever, and all of a sudden they are happy for no apparent reason. And you're happy because thank God they're happy. Well, they may be happy because they've chosen time, place, and method, and they know the pain is finite. Because suicide, contrary to popular belief, people say, why did he want to kill himself? Chances are he didn't want to kill himself. Chances are he just wanted to end the pain.
And so when you're talking with somebody and you ask them that question, there's the old adage that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Is it true that if you go through all of these things, if this person really doesn't want help, that there isn't anything that you can do to help them? Or do you believe that it really is that they just want somebody to acknowledge their pain and their suffering and kind of help them through?
Yes, just plant seeds of hope. And what I would say is here's what you do say to somebody who says, I'm having thoughts of suicide. You say, do you have a plan? Mm-hmm. If they say they have a plan, what is your plan? If it's detailed as to time, place, and method, your job as a mental health first responder is to do your best to get them on the phone with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, or if it's a younger person, they have now a suicide prevention text line. You text the word help to 741-741. If they won't pick up the phone to call the lifeline, you pick up the phone, call the lifeline, and the volunteer on the other end will do their best to talk the phone into the hand of the person who is in crisis. If they have a plan and it's detailed and they won't talk to the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, if they're in immediate danger to themselves and or others, you have no choice but to dial 911 and get the police involved. Now, the downside of that is that they'll be dragged in front of a judge who will decide yes or no whether they're going to have a involuntary detention order for 3 days, 72-hour hold, they call it.
Okay.
So they're going to be upset. They're probably going to unfriend you on Facebook, but they'll be alive.
Right. Do you think that this is increased? I mean, those are the stories that I have read, especially on social media, with all of the, the lockdowns and the pandemic and people not being able to have the social interactions and, the people that are in so much pain that because they've put off some elective surgeries, whether it's be shoulder or knee or whatever. Do you think that when we come out of this whole pandemic that we're going to see a heightened number of suicides?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I've read several studies where they believe that last year there were 47,000 roughly suicides in the U.S. This year they think, in addition to those, there are going to be 40, 50, 60,000 additional suicides. They call them deaths of despair because they were foreclosed on, because they were evicted, because they've lost their job, and they filed bankruptcy. So the people I worry about are not the mentally ill, because we wake up in an uncertain world every day.
Mm-hmm,
and so if you're high functioning, you have a self-care plan, which my self-care plan is diet, exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, medication. You have other techniques that you use day in, day out to get out of bed, put your feet on the floor, and march through the world as if nothing is wrong. I worry about the neurotypical, neuronormal people who've never been depressed before, may not even recognize the symptoms, wonder why they feel the way they do. And I've done, I can't tell you how many podcasts instructing otherwise normal people how to survive the social distancing, the pandemic, using techniques that mentally ill people use every day.
I'm sure, like I said, I think that this is just new to all of us, but I know that there are a lot of people that thrive on connection. And so when you cut that connection off, I would think that they're just kind of lost. They don't know what to do, and they can't stand the loneliness. And so that's why I was curious to know about what those numbers are. Those numbers are just incredible. I can't imagine that, what the compound effect, right, of what you said of what the normal suicide rate is, but what it may be when this all kind of wraps up with the whole pandemic. That's incredible.
Well, and 8 out of 10 people who die by suicide in the U.S. right now are men. And part of the problem for men, there are two problems. One is called toxic masculinity. You know, I was raised in the South where big boys don't cry, don't reach out for help. The second thing is men tend to tie their identity to their job. And so let's say you've been cut loose, furloughed, or laid off, or your job has disappeared. You know, a guy wakes up thinking, well, who am I if I'm not that person? And that I think is going to be a serious issue as well, because men, again, tend not to reach out for help. Generally, if they see a psychologist or a therapist, it's because somebody has drawn a line in the sand. Look, if you don't go see a psychologist, I'm leaving you. Or if you don't go see a therapist, don't come in Monday morning. So men, it tends to take something like that for a man to reach out for help.
Yeah, and I wonder why that is too. I guess it's just what you said, though. It's the masculinity. It's just, I know sometimes you have to, and you and I spoke last week, and I mentioned this to you then, that when my husband's late husband's father was ill, and I would say, how can I help you? And he would just say, I don't need any help, I can do it. And so I had to change the question to elicit a different response. And since instead of saying, how can I help you, I had to say, all right, how can I support you today? And I think that's it too. And I think that, any of the listeners that are dealing with a loved one that may be struggling with mental health, I think part of it is the same thing. You can't just go and say, what's wrong with you? Because they're going to say nothing. You have to ask a different question,
I'm fine.
Right. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. So you need to find a way to ask a different question so that you can elicit a different response. Because if you can get a different response, then I feel like they will be a little bit more vulnerable and they'll open up to you.
Yes. And unfortunately, the men, again, don't reach out for help. As someone with mental illness, part of my self-care plan is I've surrounded myself with people who know exactly what I live with, which is major depressive disorder and chronic suicidal ideation, and I can depend on them. If I say to them, look, they go, how are you doing? I can say I'm wretchedly depressed and suicidal, and they don't freak out and they don't judge. They just, as you said, how can I support you today? What can I'd like to support you. So it's kind of like having your own pit crew. When you pull into for a pit stop, you need help. Tires change, oil change, whatever it is. And in this case, you may need, a shoulder to cry on, or just somebody to listen to what's going on, or, so yeah, I think the book series we're working on, 2 books out, 2 to come, on men's mental health. It's all about community and building a community of people who understand what you're going through and are there for you when you need them, before you need them.
And I think that that's true too, because a lot of times you don't know that you need the help. And I think people see things, but they're reluctant to say anything. So, I mean, that's what we found out with women with cancer too. It's people don't know what to say, so they say nothing and stay away. So. Yes.
And also people say nothing because they're worried they're going to say the wrong thing.
I agree.
What I advise is, look, it is not always important what you say, is that you just say something.
That's right. So tell us more. Where can people find you? Where can they find out more about you, and where can they find your TED Talks?
Well, I'm in the Federal Witness Relocation Program, so you really can't reach out.
Yeah. Good. I like that.
Yeah. If you go to YouTube, type in my name, Frank King, and TEDx, you'll find, I think 4 of the 5 are already up on YouTube. Plus, you'll find a potload of comedy clips, clean comedy clips because that's what I did for decades before I became a speaker who is funny. And by the way, the funny part, people hire me to start the conversation on suicide, and the reason they do that is because I have lived experience. I'm willing to share, be vulnerable, which is unusual for a guy. And then I've got my ducks in a row in terms of education on suicide prevention, and I can leaven that with some organic, tasteful humor along the way, which makes it a lot more digestible.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Awesome.
Yeah, death and dying's, hard to take for 90 minutes without a chuckle here or there.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so grateful that you were willing to take the time out and share your story with me. Thank you.
Well, and the mental health comedian, you type that in your Google search bar, the mental health comedian, you'll find me.
Okay. All right. I'm going to look for you. All right. If you have any questions or comments or want to know more about the guests on our show or for more information about Hello Gorgeous, feel free to contact me at kbecker@hellogorgeous.org and visit our website at www.hellogorgeous.org. Thank you for joining me today on Hello Gorgeous, everything beauty, cancer, and inspiration. I'm your host, Kim Becker, and until next time, stay gorgeous.